Appointments 101. Let's talk about how to prepare for appointments, how to advocate for yourself in your appointments, and how to decompress after. One of the hardest parts about navigating the medical system and the diagnostic process is that there is so much that's out of our control. And what makes it even more frustrating is just how often that lack of control somehow turns into being blamed on the patient when that is not our blame to bear. So, what do we do about it as we're navigating the medical system and the diagnostic process? We focus on what we can do and what's in our control. We must enter our appointments knowing that we cannot control how our providers show up. We cannot control if they're going to believe us, how they'll treat us, if they give us the time of day or rush us out of there, or even how much they know about the condition you are already either diagnosed with or that you're looking to investigate further. So how can we prepare for appointments to make sure they go as smoothly and productively as possible? Knowing that your time with your doctor will probably be limited, of course, there are more people needing care now than ever, you have to be prepared to tell your story as concisely as possible at the beginning of the appointment. And that can sound really overwhelming when we have extensive health history, so let me help you out. Practice describing your symptoms and make sure that you bring with you to your appointment a symptom list. And when I say practice describing your symptoms, you can either do this to a friend, a family member, or even to yourself in the mirror. It's really important to be specific with your symptoms. And by that I mean, if you say something like, I've been having hip pain for a while, it doesn't really help your doctor out that much. If instead you say, I've been having knee pain for the last 3 months, that helps not only you, but also them orient themselves in your story. Also, try adding adjectives in the description of your symptoms. For example, if you just say, I have hip pain, okay, that doesn't tell us much about it. But if you say, I have hip pain that is throbbing, it's like pounding, sometimes it even burns, that picture is very different and gives a lot more information than the original picture where there were no adjectives used. You can also try using metaphors as descriptors for your other symptoms. And I often do this because I find them much more memorable. So as an example, I have used before, earlier on when I had just started getting sick, I was experiencing really bad neuropathy, particularly in the palm of my hand, shooting up into my fingertips. So instead of just explaining it like that, pain here, going to here, I said, it feels like someone is taking a really, really hot serrated knife and stabbing it repeatedly into the palm of my hands. That's way more memorable than I have pain here and up here. Another example, my headaches feel like someone is hitting me in the head as hard as they can with a hammer over and over and over, only I feel it directly behind my eyes. That's memorable to me. I don't know about you. And the point of all of this is that being specific and intentional with how you're describing your symptoms and your story make it easier for your doctor to more quickly assess and diagnose you, and hopefully to then treat your illness or pain management. A huge part of this is that you'll also want to think about, how are these symptoms affecting my daily life? What impact have they had? Has your health declined so much that you went from running 3 miles a day to now struggling to take a short walk without becoming breathless? Have your nausea and GI issues been so severe that they have caused you to be unable to eat, resulting in a 15-pound unintentional weight loss? Most doctors want to hear, how is it affecting your life? And what I've noticed for myself is that when I take the time to explain that to them, to really share, this is how my life has changed, they tend to take me more seriously. But that's just my experience. I'm sure it's not universal. So the next thing you want to do in preparing for your appointment is practice what I call your elevator pitch. There have been times where I've gone into appointments, the provider has come in and said, what brings you in? And I go, lights out. Not lights out fainting, but just like the lights were on and no one's home. I blinked. After having a couple of appointments like that, obviously it didn't feel good. They weren't super productive. So at that point, I decided to practice a little elevator pitch that I could have on hand, ready to go from the start of the appointment, so we weren't wasting any time getting into what the problem was. There are 4 subtopics you should consider including in your little elevator pitch. Length of time. They, of course, like I said, want to know how long this has been happening, your symptoms, don't forget your descriptors. Also, you can give a brief summary of your labs, your testing procedures, kind of like what all of that seems to indicate, if it's related, if it's showing anything at all. And of course, the last one, impact. How has it impacted your life? So here's a template and what I mean. For the last insert length of time, I've been experiencing symptoms. I've also had insert pertinent abnormal labs, imaging, or test results. My quality of life has significantly decreased since the onset of my symptoms or illness. It's changed how I blink. And I know this feels like you're barely scratching the surface with this, but it's a great place to start because it helps orient and ground yourself in the situation and orient and ground your doctor in your story. So next, What should you bring to appointments? Consider bringing your symptom list. You'll also want to make sure that you have a list of all of your medications with their dosages. It also doesn't hurt to have a list of your doctors telling where they work, what their phone number is, even what the fax number for the office is. And this is by no means necessary, but I always try to make sure I have my most pertinent medical records with me, whether that's in a notebook in my medical binder, whether it's just ready to be pulled up on my phone or my iPad. I want to make sure that I have access to them. The reason for that is I've gone into many appointments where a doctor has said, "Oh, have you had this done?" And I say, "Yes." They spend 5 to 10 minutes looking through my chart. "Oh, I can't seem to find it." That's a waste of time. It can waste time while they dig for it and possibly delay care. I think I've saved myself quite a bit of time in appointments where this has happened. They say, "Oh, turns out we don't have it." No worries, I do. Let me just flip in my binder. Here you go. So now moving on to part 2, how do we advocate for ourselves in appointments? A lot of the work you've done in your preparation for this appointment is self-advocacy. You can advocate with your detailed descriptions of your symptoms. You can also advocate for yourself by referencing tests or procedures that you've already had done and what doctors you've seen. Another way to help you advocate for yourself in appointments is to bring a family member or a friend. This can be a huge help. Unfortunately, a lot of people with chronic illnesses face medical gaslighting. If you don't have a family member or a friend to go with you to your appointment to help advocate for yourself, try finding a patient advocate through your local hospital or clinic. Their position may be called a care coordinator, patient advocate, a social worker. And if the front desk doesn't know much about that, you can contact patient relations. You can also search for disability and chronic illness organizations. Nationwide or global organizations might have some suggestions, but if they don't, you can also try to seek out local organizations, mutual aid, and community groups. You can search for your location and your illness on platforms like Facebook, Reddit, Discord, Slack. For example, I live in Chicago. I have HEDS. There's a Chicago EDS Facebook group. It's a great place to ask for suggestions for certain doctors and also for a lot of great resources like new research that comes out. People are always sharing it in those groups. Now, if no one is available to come with you, there are still things you can do to advocate for yourself as effectively as possible. You can ask to record the visit. Maybe you have really bad brain fog and you struggle to remember all of the details because doctor's appointments can be so overwhelming. Just be mindful of the fact that in some states, it's illegal to record without everyone's consent, so that would include your doctor. Something else you can do to advocate for yourself is asking them to slow down or asking them to pause so you can take notes. It's pretty common for providers to write summaries of the appointments afterwards, but if your provider doesn't always do that, ask for it. It's well within your rights to do so. One of the biggest things you can do to advocate for yourself in appointments is to ask questions. It's their job to help you and to help you understand your care. Please, please, please do not feel bad about asking questions, regardless of how many questions you ask. And if you don't understand something they've said, ask them to explain it again. Then, if you're still uncertain about whether or not you are understanding exactly what they're saying, feel free to say, "Thank you so much for explaining that to me. I just want to make sure I have this right." And then repeat a summary of what they have said to you, but do not be afraid to ask questions. So now, you made it out of the appointment, whether it went good or bad. Now, we're going to wind down. We're going to decompress. How are we going to do that? We're going to start with what is absolutely necessary, and that's getting a little treat. Just a little treat, whether it's your favorite drink, whether it's your favorite bakery item, something to remind yourself that you showed up for yourself. You deserve a little prize, a little reward for that. Another thing you can do to decompress after an appointment is not throwing yourself immediately back into normal life. If you're able to build in a little break time, maybe take that time to feel all of the feels. Just let them out. Also, try to fuel your body if you're able to, whether that's with your favorite drink, a food, a smoothie. Obviously, we all know appointments can be incredibly anxiety-inducing, exhausting. So if you have time, if you don't have to rush off somewhere else, you could try creating a different sensory experience. Maybe that means putting some sunglasses or a sleeping eye mask on, lying down in your nice comfy bed, listening to music, or maybe just laying there in silence. Or another example, maybe you light your favorite candle, you sit down, you get all nice and cozy on the couch, and you eat one of your favorite foods. A lot of times this can help your body calm down, can reassure your body the threat has passed, the appointment has ended, now I'm safe, and I just need to breathe. Another thing you can try is journaling, whether it's by hand, by voice memo, by typing. Instead of spiraling with the weight of everything that happened in the appointment, all of that information you got, try to just write as much of it down as you can. Don't go crazy with it and do it for hours and hours and hours. Set your timer for maybe 5-10 minutes. When the timer goes off, you are done and you need to breathe again. Now, one last thing I want to make sure that you know, so please listen closely. If your appointment was not as productive as you'd hoped, if your doctor wasn't kind enough, if they dismissed you or gaslit you, I hope you can leave that appointment knowing you did every single thing you could to prepare to make that appointment be productive and to have it go well. There is nothing more you could have done. And it is not your fault if your doctor didn't believe you, if they dismissed you, if they had to rush out of the room and you only got 5 minutes with them. You did everything you could, everything you're supposed to do. And I am so, so, so proud of you for doing it. And I hope you're proud of yourself too. And the last thing I want you to remember is your reality is not up for debate. Just because a doctor gaslit you and said, you're not sick, you just have anxiety, or they dismissed you or rushed you out of there and you only saw them for 3 to 5 minutes, all of that happening doesn't take away from the fact that you are sick, that you did everything you could to have this appointment go well. Your reality is not up for debate, and you know your truth. One day, you'll find a doctor that knows it too.